Hi there, everyone. My name is Forrest, and today we're going to be launching a new series in part with Alphagrad regarding just various tech news and information about tech news that they have in their Discord that we're going to go ahead and talk about because, well, it's important. So let's go ahead and just dive right into it. So in this immediately, we're going to start discussing the various Alphagrad news. So some of the common trends that are going on right now are based around AI, so that artificial intelligence, or that buzzword that you commonly hear on the news, right? So essentially with a lot of AI, there's a lot of misconceptions, just to immediately put it out there, right? There's a lot of misconception that AI will fully replace individuals, and that AI is this blanket term. Biggest thing I should emphasize before even going into this is that AI is a very, very broad term. It includes a lot. There can be some AI models that are more commonly just really machine learning. So basically, whenever it figures out, hey, what's this algorithm? How does this algorithm work? How does this data work based on the algorithm? And how much data has been fed into it, right? And then there's, on the opposite end of the spectrum, the generative AI, in which you can simply state to it, write me code that does this. And it will go ahead and generate a full code for you, hint, hint, in that term, generative AI. However, the biggest thing I did want to mention, and reason I wanted to bring that up, is because AI is a relatively new but very interesting, very appealing topic for many industry experts to talk about. So, as you continue through this journey and being more aware, being just very conscious of what's going on, you also want to be aware of what kind of AI is being talked about here. So we picked out three different articles, but before we even go into that, why should you listen to me? Just some random person, right? Well, again, do your own research on this, but a very brief overview of who I am is I'm a cybersecurity professional. I've held the roles of individual contributors such as admins, analysts, engineers, and I've also been in leadership roles in cybersecurity. Currently, I'm a working manager for a security operations team in the United States. And as well, I'm currently pursuing my doctoral of science in cybersecurity. I have my master's of science in cybersecurity and information assurance. I have 15 plus industry standard certifications related to technology and cybersecurity. I've had multiple years now working in the field, and I'm also an industry researcher. So, what does that all mean? Basically, I'm a nerd that hates any free time. But really, whenever it comes down to it, I really am passionate about cybersecurity. It's a fantastic field to be in. And honestly, as you can tell, I've dedicated a lot of time into this, and I really think it's important. One of the areas of my research, honestly, is based around the human element that goes into all of this, which is why AI is, well, just frankly, so important. So let's go ahead and dive into it. So, first and foremost, we had an article, Political Disinformation and AI. Now, we'll cover these few basic sort of things in just a moment, but before that, let's go ahead and flip on over to the actual article itself. So, talking about this is from the Schneier on Security. It's actually one of the main security intelligence feeds that are going into the Alphagrad Discord tech news channel right now. And in this, you have a gentleman by the name of Bruce. I won't go ahead and read his background verbatim, but he has a lot of background based around technology and specifically based around security. Now, one of the things that he went ahead and did is he wrote an article based around political disinformation and AI. Again, we won't go ahead and go into this verbatim, and I won't read the entire article to you just to milk time or anything like that. But the biggest thing that you should take away from this is there is this emerging aspect really around political disinformation and how AI, and again, roughly defined, really is working intertwined together. So, in this, I'll provide a link to this article in the video description, but just be aware of this. And as well, I've compiled a just high level of exactly what is what. So let's go back to that slideshow here. So again, this gets into the idea of why should you care? So there's multiple different reasons as to why you should care, right? This isn't just something of me saying, hey, AI is cool and fun, let's talk about it, right? You as an individual, even if you're going into cybersecurity or not, should be aware of AI and the implications that it entails on us, right? So some of the biggest areas, right, we have the political entities and countries continually looking to influence themselves in other countries. So big thing that happened, if you weren't aware of it, is in 2016 in the United States presidential election, there was heavily implied election interference with Russia, predominantly leveraging social media to disinform the public. I do want to emphasize, though, this isn't a take to say, hey, Russia means bad, right? The United States has done very, very similar exercises even before technology was a thing. The United States, especially in the 1900s, was very, very involved with influencing other countries' elections, specifically those in the Middle East or South America. However, because we're now talking about this vector of social media and just really cyber at this point, we do just need to be aware that there are adversaries that are targeting one another, and really it just tends to be divided up by the East and the West, and whatever classifications those are. Part of the other aspect on it too is that conference speakers are warning heavily of a concern for amped up election interference in the upcoming years here. Many countries are going to be having their elections, and we'll kind of talk about that in the future implications here. But essentially, what could happen here? So this is again a article by Bruce. It's not anything of something did happen or did not happen. This is really just his ideas and his perception on this, right? And what could have happened, or what could happen because of this implication, is that things like Twitter, for instance, have been shown to leverage and sway public opinion. Specifically, tweets that were being leveraged by U.S. media to really garner and show how the public is really regarding the political interests at that time. Well, unfortunately, there were a lot of those that were used by the media that were actually Russian tweets. Again, that level of disinformation going ahead and really representing a external perception on it as an internal perception of it. As well, Bruce really highlighted the idea that AI can be leveraged on tools like TikTok or anything else to make the distribution of the content far easier than it has been in the previous years. Even in things like Twitter or now X, it was a bit more difficult to have the distribution, right? There wasn't this level of interconnectivity. There wasn't this level of really being the primary source for a lot of these tools. But with TikTok, it is. Now TikTok goes ahead and declares, well, most social trends if you really look at it. So Bruce did highlight that, hey, we need to be aware of what vectors, aka in this point TikTok, are being used that AI might have an impact on. As well, one of the other areas is this whole idea of generative AI. So whenever I say generative AI, really the probably highest level that I should talk about it with is it is probably one of the strongest levels of AI, right? It goes ahead and makes that code for you. It makes that software for you just by literally typing a sentence, make me this software, right? And generative AI is kind of a concern. The biggest reason for it is, one, it's being weaponized, but the way that experts were able to determine if something was artificial intelligence or if it was actually real, it wasn't a faked sort of thing, it typically had telltale signs. Those would be things like a new account, nothing posted, very generalized information, random string as a username, so on and so forth. Now, if you mix in generative AI, however, that can go ahead and post about everyday life. And that can behave like a normal human being with no differentiator. So now experts are going to have to figure out what the new telltale sign is of something being AI. And that can potentially have a huge, huge impact on how long it takes for these companies to determine is something real, is it not? But not only that, but how long it takes for something that is purposefully being faked to be taken down. And with that as well, what impact it does have in the meantime. Lastly, there are future implications, right? So, whenever I say this disinformation campaign and this disinformation transformation, really the biggest thing is it's again that generative AI, right? It's going to be a very, very big transformation for this expert field to really determine, hey, is something actually true? Is this, Forrest going ahead and saying this, or is it an AI that's been generated to say that on top of what Forrest is saying? It's going to be a lot of impact and a lot of new ideas and just critical thinking that the field has to go ahead and evolve into. That said, there is a mixed bag of really seeing this AI being leveraged, right? There are some examples, and we're actually going to be talking about that in the next news post here. But there are examples as well where AI hadn't been used. For instance, in elections in Argentina, Ecuador, or Turkey, AI did not seem to actually have a strong impact on how their electoral system worked. And it didn't actually seem like they had a huge, I'd say, influence or concern with it. As well, there's no one-size-fits-all approach, right? We have multiple different vectors such as TikTok, Twitter, Meta, so on and so forth. Then we also have all of the different types of AI that can be used. Is it more of that machine learning type of AI, or is it that generative AI? So the fields, including cybersecurity, including uh, um, fact-checking fields, including social media, have to adopt and really learn what approach they specifically need to take. So, lots to unravel there, but let's go ahead and talk about a real-world example here. So in this was a deepfake election interference in Slovakia that was actually just recently observed. So in this article, and we'll go ahead and switch on over to the article real quick here, but in this, we had deepfake election interference in Slovakia. And while I do think Bruce is a great author about this, I'm actually going to go straight to the source. So in this, we do have the Slovakia's election deepfakes show AI is a danger to democracy. Very, very explosive headline there to get your attention. All that said, though, the core functionality of this and the core, honestly, understanding on it is that there was a use of a deepfake from an AI that went ahead and influenced the election. At least that's how it's currently looking. Again, I'll go ahead and provide the link to this article in the video description for you to do your own research, but I'll give you the very, very high levels just as we talked of previously here. So let's switch on over again. So again, as we talk about this, right, there's always that importance. Why should I care? Why is this important for me to actually understand? And really, there's a core component of it, right, is that the deepfakes made by AI are being weaponized, be it for a good reason or a bad reason. I'm not going to have a political discussion, but they are being weaponized. And this has real-world consequences for real-world people. To kind of give a little bit more elaboration, two drastically different parties were involved in this Slovakian election, right? You had a pro-NATO party, and then one that has been associated being a pro-Russian party. And this election system, it's not something to where, in the United States, it's a you're voting for president thing. It's more so of whose party goes ahead and gets the most votes. And then it requires a hold of power in the parliament and then a coalition to ultimately say who the prime minister will be. And these results, they were extremely tight, right? 22.9% of the pro-Russian party and 18% to the pro-NATO party. So it was very neck and neck, and that is why this AI aspect was being associated as having an impact. Specifically on this, The deepfake had the leader of the pro-NATO party talking to a media source in Slovakia to go ahead and figure out how to rig the election. Here's the thing. I do want to emphasize that is a deep fake. That was not a conversation that was had. That is something that artificial intelligence had created and was then circulated around social media. And part of this was going ahead to resonate with the Roma minority in Slovakia, a separate ethnic group that lives there. And ultimately, you can already see, well, this is why it matters, because even if you're not Slovakian or if you don't have any horse in the show, whatever it may be, you still are impacted by these implications, right? And you need to be aware of what's going on. So, what happened, again, we kind of explored that in depth, but just to give a very, very detailed, is that an audio was posted onto Meta, which most of us know as Facebook still, that exploited a loophole to get through their policy. Specifically, this policy was that Meta has a policy against deepfakes being posted. The caveat is that this is only on faked videos, not any audio, and it specifically has to show where a person has been edited to say words they didn't say. This was also very calculated whenever it was posted. This was posted during a silence period in Slovakia. So during Slovakian elections, there is a 48-hour probation period. My apologies to politicians and the media before the polls open. So if the polls are opening from 2 days from now, politicians and the media in Slovakia would not have any further insights into the campaigning or politics. And that caused an immense amount of issues, because in order to debunk this, and we'll go into further detail here as well, but in order to debunk this, there had to be an investigation done. And many of these politicians and medias were not able to be easily reached or quickly reached to determine this. As well, the audio showed signs of being manipulated using AI, but it really needed a lot of investigation further. Luckily, Meta has a fact-checking partner. In this case, it was Demagogue, right? Unfortunately, Demagogue themselves had stated they were not prepared for this type of attack, and they struggled with getting the claims being made in the social media posts to have their authenticity. They had a lot of different experts that they were calling. They were trying to determine where the source originally came from. They were trying to determine how the source was manipulated. And they even went ahead and had an AI speech classifier mocked up themselves, so that way they could determine, hey, can we do this? And this process took a few hours once they got the ball rolling to confirm that the recording was indeed altered. However, the issue was the damage already had been done. Now, ultimately, there's a lot of future implications that come with this, right? In this, I've listed a few potentials, but really the biggest thing is that a lot of countries are going into their election season. Now, it's always weird to say season because these tend to be multiple years, but lots of different countries are going into this. Poland is actually going into the polls in October. And India, the UK, they're expected to have their elections in 2024. And then as well, the US, they are having elections in the 2024 year. And even experts in the field have to do an immense amount of research to really confirm or deny a claim that something was generated by AI. Lastly, of course, industries like cybersecurity, political science, so on and so forth, really have to ask themselves the questions and determine how to appropriately handle these fakes to ensure that these platforms are as safe as possible for the user base and the public as a whole. So, we'll go ahead and dive into the last topic about this from October from Alphagrad here. So specifically in this is the NSA, that National Security Agency, having an AI Security Center launched up. So again, before we just go over these high-level constraints, this does come directly from Schneider on security. And again, I'll go directly to the source here, so just bear with me for one moment. And so in this source, again, the National Security Agency, one of the big three-letter agencies in the United States, is starting an artificial intelligence security center, right? Um, the reason, if you're not too aware of it, if you're outside of the United States, or even if you're in the US and you don't know, uh, the NSA is part of the Department of Defense. That's why you're seeing an individual in Army outfits here to go ahead and really sell this and tell the government why it's important that this is happening. Again, won't read this to you verbatim. I'll provide the link. But let's go ahead and go back to the slideshow here. So, very last article on this, why you should care, right? Again, the NSA, it's one of the three major agencies in the United States based around, well, anything cybersecurity, but really it's one of the three major agencies in the first place. And it's one of the most prominent for any public, basically that non-private company, cybersecurity roles. So essentially, in the United States, if you're either if you're in cybersecurity, you're either working for a private company or you're working likely for the NSA, maybe CISA, maybe NIST, but typically NSA is one of the biggest ones, and they tend to be the operational arm of the house for any of the government requirements. And again, both the Department of Defense, such as the U.S. Army and the NSA, are recognizing the concerns with AI based around security and how it's impacting national security at this point. Very high level, what happened? So as we talked about it, the NSA wing of Cybersecurity Collaboration Center, it will officially be integrated with AI security research and interests there. So that's going to entail that both the NSA and private industry partners go ahead and do additional research to figure out how to harden the U.S. defense systems, including critical infrastructure there. And that's really intended to protect the U.S. internally, but also it's going to have an added benefit of protecting the U.S. partners. With that, some future implications, we're likely going to see that many other governments are going to follow suit and follow the lead of the United States. I would fully expect that China, Russia, United Kingdom, France, so on and so forth, will all be launching their own division of government paid security experts to search into and understand artificial intelligence security and how it might be weaponized against them. One thing I will say though, we need to be aware and viciously overseeing our government in this. And by our government, I am saying United States, but we need to be aware of any governments that go ahead and proceed to follow this. Well, at this time, it is going ahead and being recognized as a defense requirement. This is something that is very crucial and very, honestly, explosive if the government uses this maliciously. I won't do any political perceptions at this point, but any government agency, if they understand how to defend against malicious AI, they then can ultimately reverse engineer it and figure out how to use malicious AI. So we just have to be very conscious and aware as all of this is wrapped up. So all that to say, these are the three main areas of AI that we've seen throughout the Alphagrad news stories here. These were very fun, very honestly important articles to really understand. But all that to say, again, do your own research. Make sure that you are being diligent. Make sure that you're understanding it. Don't just take my word for it. But it's been a pleasure, and I'll go ahead and see you in the next one. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.